What's up, North Texas fans? Welcome to the GoMeanGreen Recruiting Show. This is the preview for the National Signing Day. This is JD. I'm joined by the president and CEO of GoMeanGreen, Harry, and the
Hey,
one of the best scouts, I think, in Dallas Fort Worth, GMG 24. How are you guys doing?
Doing
doing
good. Thanks for
great.
having us on.
Thanks for having us.
So, yeah, good. Thank you guys for joining me. So, early signing period wasn't normally what it is. We two signings. That's all we had. So it was kind of slow. It was kind of scary. Um, Coach Morris came on, and to me, they've put together an unbelievable class so far. Of course, we only got a few guys across the dotted line yet, or that signed, but hopefully can get a couple more across the finish line tomorrow. Harry, what's your overall thoughts of the class so far?
I'm thrilled. Like you said, the short timeline makes it hard, but honestly, for what they've been able to accomplish in such a short time frame, I mean, the odds were stacked against us because of the timing of when Wren left, and then it took time to get Eric Morris hired. So I felt like, given that situation and just how tough the timing was, the way they came on strong here at the end and landed such quality players. Again, I say landed. We've got to get the signatures. We're not doing faxes anymore. It's emails. But with that being said, if things play out like we expect it to, what a great comeback class this is. And what's even better is, what is this group of recruiters going to do and this coaching staff going to do with a full year under their belt? I mean, that's really exciting looking at the future.
Absolutely. 24.
Yeah, I mean, Harry kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, they went out and they took their time. I think that was kind of hard for some of us to be patient and wait, but they did it the right way. And he, recruited the kids that he had on campus. And, you and I were talking the other day. I was shocked that we didn't lose more kids to the portal. Anytime you have new staff and turnover like that, that's usually a pretty big deal. So the fact that we kept as many as we did was really impressive. And then on top of that, now you look at the class that they're building right now, and it is very, very impressive. So I'm excited to kind of break it down and look forward to seeing what these guys all develop into as their careers come along at UNT.
Absolutely. To me, it's a well balanced class. I mean, you can see on the image to the right. Defense, offense. It's balanced throughout. Even bringing in a kicker. It's a good mix of high school kids and transfers. Like I said, I think that they it's not easy to put together a class of this caliber. With virtually just 3 weeks of recruiting, when most of these schools were recruiting for multiple years. So. And like Harry said, I think it's going to be exciting to see what this staff does with a full year under their belt, getting a recruit, putting a class together. One thing to note that when we started the recruiting process, we knew there was going to be about 10 scholarships available. I think North Texas will end up signing 19 kids tomorrow, so there are some defections we haven't talked about. So we'll get to that going into spring. But there was some players that retired and stuff, but I think that the staff, the class they've put together, is hopefully going to be able to fill some of those voids of some players leaving. Start with the kind of the sleepers, picks of the class. Harry, your sleeper pick of the class so far on the offensive side of the ball.
There's this is a tough one because there's quite a few that I like on sleepers, but I guess I'll start off and say, let's go with the offensive lineman, the Texas Tech transfer that we landed on the offensive line, Larry Moore. I like his size at 6'6", 275 pounds. You can't teach that. I think that position is one that's always been a challenge for not just North Texas, but G5 programs in general. It looks like he was in the too deep at Texas Tech, so he wasn't a scrub by any means. He was inching close towards getting more playing time there, and sometimes a change of sometimes a change of venue, a change of pace, a new coaching staff can bring the best out of players. And so I kind of look at him as a guy that could really end up being a key piece of the cog as far as the offensive line and this offense that Eric Morse wants to run.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you can bring in a Power 5, offensive tackle caliber player, you can't be upset by it. 24. What's your sleeper of the class?
I'm going to go with the hometown legend. We're going to go with the young man out of Denton Guyer, Landon Sides. I am really, really excited about him. His offer list, sometimes people kind of get confused on why kids don't have offers or why their list looks the way it does. And Landon, as a junior, he only had 14 catches for about 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. And so that's not the kind of caliber production that's going to warrant some big time offers. And then all of a sudden he goes to a junior year in track and he runs as slow as a 10.98 and then as fast as a 10.54. He long jumped 22 feet, 9.5 inches, which is incredibly explosive. And then you see the results of that. As a senior, he has 60 catches for just shy of 1,400 yards and 16 touchdowns. And so I'm really excited to see what he can do because he's not playing against, no offense to the smaller school ball, but sometimes you can put up some pretty big numbers against some DBs that maybe aren't as good as you. But week in and week out, he's playing Division I guys and putting up big numbers on them. So I'm really excited about him and hope to continue to recruit his school well over the rest of Morris's tenure.
Yeah, and to kind of reiterate and talk a little more about, you know way more about recruiting and what goes on at the high school ranks than a lot of people. How big a difference are you seeing compared to in years past, as far as the COVID year, the extra eligibility, the transfer portal? Have you seen kind of a dip in high school recruiting? Less coaches coming by, less offers going out. Can you kind of speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. I think the extra COVID year really was a bigger hit to high school kids than necessarily the transfer portal. To me, the transfer portal is kind of like JUCO. I can try and go get a guy that's a little bit older, a little bit more developed to try and plug in immediately. Whereas, the COVID year really just backed up and backlogged rosters with guys that were, we saw it last year with Ani and those guys. They're in their 6th, 7th, 8th year of college football. And so as far as the pace of recruiting, anything like that, I don't think that's changed. I do think, though, that there's kids that are ending up where they need to end up as opposed to, maybe a kid like Landon where a P5 comes in late with that big senior season and they try and get him in, whereas, he probably belongs at a UNT. And so same way with the tackle we got out of McKinney. I think if you don't have the COVID year and you don't have the transfer portal, I think that kid probably picks up a couple of Power 5 schools, whereas, he really probably belongs at UNT. So I forget that young man's name, Desmond Magia, there it is. And so, I think it's going to be beneficial for us because we're going to get the caliber of player that we need to be successful, but then they're also going to be where they need to be so that they can play and they don't end up in the transfer portal, unless they're trying to move up, which hopefully they all stay here.
Absolutely. Moving on to the picks of the class. Harry, what would you say is the star of the class, in your opinion, on the offensive side of the ball?
I got to go with Chandler Rogers at quarterback. Such a critical position as we've seen the last few years. Nothing against Austin Ani. He had some great numbers and did some great things, but that seemed to be the missing piece coming away from the Mason Fine year. Find a quarterback that could execute the offense. I think loved what I saw in film. Loved the fact that he did not play for a good team at Louisiana Monroe, but yet he was still able to complete 67.5% of his passes in 2022, 2,400 yards. 18 touchdowns. I like this kid. I think he's one of those kids that has learned from his experiences and in college football, and he's going to bring that to the table. Obviously going to be he's going to have a real good shot to start quarterback for this team. And I like his story, and I like what I see in terms of his abilities.
Yeah, I mean, nothing against Austin, but I feel like, we were kind of lacking a little bit. I mean, Austin, we talked about it to nauseum. He had games or actually drives where he looked like a number 1 round pick, and then he had drives where he looked like he couldn't start, at most DFW high schools. So getting a guy like Chandler Rogers moving into the American, I mean, his dual threat ability is something that is exciting, and to watch it within Eric's offense, it's really exciting, I guess, moving into the next year. 24, who's your star of the class, pick of the class?
Was Chandler Rogers there at Lake Ridge when Bean was there, or was he after him?
So he was actually a junior,
sure
was senior year.
Yeah, okay. I knew there was a connection. I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, and I remember getting about 100 questions that year of why were we going after the backup quarterback? Because Rogers, that Bean's senior year, Rogers was, if we remember, Rogers was taking most of the snaps, and I remember just getting people just, messaging at least once a week, why aren't we going? Why haven't we offered the starter? Why are we going after the backup? Which, nothing against Bean, he was a great player, but Chandler was just, I mean, he's shown he's he's got the ability to be a pocket passer as well as, he can take it to the house at any time. So really excited to get him in. 24, your pick of the class, star of the class on the offensive side.
I'm going to go with Trey Cleveland, and I'm going to do that because I think the guy has been playing behind some really talented receivers out at Texas Tech, a couple of NFL guys. I think watching his high school tape, he kind of reminds me of kind of a mix between like Tommy Bush and Jair Shorter type guy, where he's a longer guy. He opens up and really runs after his first couple strides. His offer list was kind of weird. I've been doing some phone calls and haven't really gotten any answers. But out of high school, he had Southern Illinois offered him in May of going into his senior year, and then he went out to a Texas Tech camp on June 9th, and then they offered him on June 17th, and that was it for his offer list. And so I don't know if it's a deal where he didn't get to camp a bunch or what it was, but I'm really excited about him because Emmett Jones was the one that offered him out at Texas Tech, and that guy's offered quite a few guys that ended up going and playing in the league at wide receiver. And so if he's good enough for Emmett Jones, he's good enough for me. So he is my pick of the class.
Absolutely. And it's mid-mentioned on the board. I mean, we've got some transfers in here the last few years. I mean, Seth and them, probably didn't use the transfer portal as much as we would have liked on the recruiting show, but he did bring in, Tommy Bushes and several other guys through the portal. But Trey's probably one of the guy that I think of the most. I mean, he had playing time. He was, I think he caught 33 balls this year for Texas Tech. So it's not like he was just sitting out there in Lubbock just twiddling his thumbs. I mean, he was actually playing. So getting a guy in like that's seen the field and has seen playing time at a Power 5 level makes it that more exciting. And then the fact it looks like as of now Shorter's coming back. I mean, we talk about Chandler Rogers having a chance to throw to two potentially Power 5 type wide receivers on the outside is pretty exciting thing, moving into a new conference. So
I think we're stacked at receiver. I really, I mean, you look at if everyone comes back, like you're talking about, JD, in particular Jair, but there's some other guys, Smart, there's another guy that was out with injury that I know can. I mean, I think, there's no excuse for us not to be productive at wide receiver next year.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very deep position. Ward, Macklin, Shorter. We could sit here and I feel like name 5 more names and I'd still be forgetting somebody. So that's definitely an exciting position, I guess, moving into the new conference. I would say it's probably, besides running back, it's probably one of the most stacked positions on the offensive side of the ball. So definitely something to look forward to. So we're recording this obviously the night before National Signing Day. The only 2 names, well, there's 3 names that we've offered. We haven't heard anything. But the 2, I would say, big fish that's left on the board: Taylor Starling, cornerback, South Oak Cliff; Keith Smith, defensive line, South Oak Cliff. Keith Smith was committed to us, decommitted once coaching change happened, was reoffered by the new staff. Him and Taylor both visited about 2 weeks ago. How are you guys feeling about them going into tomorrow when they make the big decision? I think Keith is choosing between us and Texas State, and of course Taylor is, choosing between I guess you'd say the big three: Texas State, UTSA, and North Texas. So start with you, Harry. What are your feelings going in tomorrow about those two guys?
I mean, my feelings are good. I again, fingers crossed. Things can change at the last minute, but maybe this cold weather we're experiencing will kind of freeze things in place. But I like our chances, obviously, with both. I think Taylor Starling's a hell of a good football player. I love we haven't talked about this a lot on this show, but I mean the inroads into South Dallas, into South Oak Cliff, are just huge. I think it's a natural fit for North Texas. And it's one that we haven't been able to capitalize on as much in the past. But I love his athleticism. I love his film. I mean, I think he, if not a guy that's going to start right away, is going to definitely start competing. I've made no bones about it. And no offense meant, but I mean, our secondary was the weak point of this team. So seeing a player like that come in, I haven't seen as much about Keith. I know Cooley, who's a well-respected poster on the board, has said some really good things about him, and he follows that program very closely. And I like his size. So anytime you can add a guy to that rotation, which I also think is potential strength of the team, that's a great plus. So I'm very positive on both of them. Just like I said, fingers crossed that we can bring them both in, because I think they're both good players.
Absolutely. 24, you got any scouting report, any feelings on those two guys?
Yeah, I think they're both guys that can come in and make an impact. Starling actually is going to be he's going to be my pick of the class for the defense whenever we get to that portion and we do that show. But that kid is very, very good. I think he was outshined a little bit. I think he got outshined by, excuse me, the other corner. I think his last name was Muhammad, who was also a very elite DB. And so I think some of the eyes and the attention went over to that guy and kind of got off of Starling. As much as you can say that, I mean, the guy had his pick of offers of where he wanted to go. I mean, at one point he had Colorado and some other schools. So to me, the biggest thing at DB that I've noticed out of this cycle is the speed that we've brought in. I mean, the Starling guy ran a 10.49 in the region meet, in the region track meet. That's flying for a football player. Not necessarily for a true track person, but for a guy that plays football, that's dynamic. And so to have that coming in as a freshman, the guy's only going to get faster, which means he should have less times of him being ran by. So I'm really excited about Taylor Starling. I saw a video the other day that was pretty cool that might give us an idea of what might happen there, but I will let that kid, get his shine on signing day. So, and then Keith Smith is really disruptive. He kind of reminds me of the Marcus Moore kid, just not quite as developed, kind of a younger version of him. I think he had like 16 or 17 TFLs as a junior. The Keith Smith guy did. And so he is a well put together kid. A lot of times they put on there, 6'2", 280, and you see them and they're maybe 6 foot half inch and they're 260 or 265. And I actually got to watch one of their practices, got with their defensive coordinator and got out and watched them practice before their semifinal game. And he is every bit of whatever they say he is. That's a big boy. So hopefully we get both those two guys added to this class to finish the class out and rock and roll.
Yeah. I mean, before the class even took shape, I think we're talking about early signing period. Defensive backs and quarterback were my two positions that we had to improve on moving to this new conference. And with the addition of Rogers and then and we'll obviously dive into it more tomorrow, but the defensive side of the ball, the defensive back position, I mean, some of the guys they got is committed so far is super impressive. And then I think if you can add Starlin on top of that, it's the cherry on top of the cake. I mean, I think that we could be looking back, and this could be, in my opinion, since I started doing this, one of the most impressive hauls as far as defensive backs go in one class. So hopefully when we reconvene tomorrow afternoon, hopefully if we have any surprises, they'll be good surprises. Hopefully everybody that's on the list signs, crosses the finish line, and we put a stamp on Eric Morse's first signing period, and get to work on the 24 class. So without further ado, go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.